Hey everybody, it's March 8th, and I'm doing another Babbles on Encore because it's kind of the only thing I can do right now because everything's up in chaos. So I'm trying to get a little bit of stuff out there. I haven't done the research I want to do for my next show. I wanted my next show to be more educational, more of a voice of reason, based on objective facts, etc., etc. But it's a whole lot easier to just kind of spit out your opinion, and that's mostly what people do on YouTube, on podcasts. They, tell everyone their opinion, and there's a place for that. But I was kind of hoping to go beyond that. I'm not there yet, unfortunately, so we might have some encores of me just kind of babbling, and I'm okay with that, and I hope you are too. So, what's going on with the world of Bry? Well, I feel like I'm trying to stick a square peg in a square peg in a circle hole. Yes, I did almost say purple hole. I don't even know if that has a sexual meaning for all you innuendo people. So I am doing that, trying to kind of squeeze my belongings, which honestly I kind of expanded ridiculously. I have like 4 headphones, two of which are Bluetooth headsets. One of them I'm working on now is wired. It's just, I got all sorts of crap I really should throw out, I guess. So that's part of it. But I'm just very confused. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea if the government's ever going to give me more help than like some food stamps and stuff. Not that I don't appreciate that. Thank you all. I mean, essentially it goes back to the taxpayers, including myself, because everything I buy is taxed. So we're all kind of net taxpayers, unless you get cancer and you have no insurance and you're part of some special program for the indigent. But those are also supported by charity dollars as well. So it's hard to say. Do any of us really kind of get over on the government? I don't know about that. I think the only way you could do that is to come from another country and get all sorts of aid and never get off of it. Because even if you're illegal and you don't pay taxes, you get paid very little, maybe they pay taxes in a way, under like a pseudonym, all those kind of things. Just sales tax, when you weren't paying that and your parents weren't paying that, et cetera, over the first, 30-something years of your life, and now you're in a new country and you're taking benefits, those, sorry, been having a lot of trouble speaking lately. In that situation, I could see it. I can't really see it if you've been here forever, because think about everything that your parents bought when you were a baby, everything your parents bought toy-wise when you were a kid. Think about the extra channels they got on cable so that they would have kid-friendly stuff. Or in my case, think of all the extra porn channels your parents got. Wow, that sounds strange. That's actually a true story. It was a household full of guys, so, he put in money to that to make everybody happy, I guess. Think about all the products that an individual buys on just think on like a monthly basis. I think if we put together everything that we buy, most people are getting towards $1,000. That's without rent. That's without utilities. We're just talking about just little gadgets we buy, things we buy. The upgrade to our phone that might cost us like 100 to 200 bucks. And that's on the cheap. That's not somebody who's buying like the newest iPhone. That's just somebody who's like their phone is now speaking to them in Korean. And if they don't upgrade, they're going to have to learn Korean. So all of us pay taxes. And then if you work, of course, you've seen your own paychecks. There's 7.6 or 6.2 is FICA, which is Social Security. And even now, Social Security is somehow taxed. I forget how they do that. I don't get Social Security, so I'm not too sure about that. But I know in the 80s, they would start taxing Social Security, which is pretty crazy. But that's where we went. Everything gets taxed. I'm not sure why they did that. Or if it's even true, that might be just kind of like a left talking point, a bumper sticker or something. But if that's the case, I'm always kind of open to being wrong. I'd rather eventually be right than be right now. I'd rather have some sort of objective truth. So, Encore number 1, I'm going to call it Encore so I don't have to have too much of a connection with it. It doesn't have to be all just thrown together, but it doesn't have to be, sticking to one subject either. So I've had a few ideas, and they might turn into like one of my regular shows once I get time to do all the research. One is actually education. Now, I'm a solution-oriented person. So here's the deal. A lot of us have consolidated our loans with the government. It's a better deal. Most people do it. So if you had any private loans, you just roll that into like a direct loan consolidation, it's called. So you do that, and now you have all these kind of, you have some more deferments, you have some more reasons for deferments, but you also have, I don't know if it's payee or payer, or income contingent, or income determinant. Like there's all these different phrases that would be used interchangeably, except that they're quite different when it comes to student loans. So be careful what you get. It can easily get very confusing. But after a certain number of years, if you have a hardship deferment, or every time you have a deferment for being unemployed or chronically ill for whatever reason, that counts towards your loans as a payment. Unfortunately, what happens every time you go on such a thing, they take the interest and roll it into the what's it called? Into the principal balance. Now, the higher the principal, the higher. It's kind of like if you have a credit card, and let's say your credit card, you owe $100, but you don't make the payment, and then they penalize you like $20 for that, and then there's some interest on it. So now it's let's say it's 10% interest instead of the $10 you would have paid. Now you're paying 122.12 or whatever. So you're paying like this extra amount, and it kind of keeps going up from there. So now you're paying interest on 122, and you don't make another payment. There's another $20 like fee, and then there's the interest, the 10% interest again. So you see how it kind of just like spirals upward. I started out with 30-something thousand. I went to a cheap college and got a cheap degree, but I was just never in. Well, I did pay back for a while. Anytime I was kind of gainfully employed, I would pay my loans back. But even with that, I think it went up to the actual principal balance was really 32, might have been 36, and now I'm up to 49, and that's the principal. So that's not the amortization. By the time you're done with amortization, you're probably going to end up paying about twice as much. It's kind of like a 20-year mortgage. You pay twice for your house, depending on the rate. Unfortunately, rates are either going up or about to. I'm definitely up for people who don't have good credit, unlike before. So, what do we do about this student loan thing? Well, what you could do is, let's say you make a decent income. I'm not talking a huge amount. Let's say you make 40,000, and at the end of the year you get, I don't know, up to 6 maybe. Usually more like 10%. You get like maybe 4 of that back for whatever reason. You have children, you have dependents, blah blah blah. They took out too much. I think the thing is, anytime you go for a job, just put out like 0 deductions, so they take out the max. It's like a savings plan basically. So what happens at the end of the year? At the end of the year, under my plan, under just kind of preliminary idea, by the way. That's why it's kind of a BL Babbles thing and not the actual new show I'm going to do, Voice of Reason. The government can actually say, okay, we're going to keep your tax return at 4,000, but we're going to take off 8,000. You're like, what? That's crazy. Now, it might be more or less than 8,000, depending on the numbers, and you'll understand why I said that in a second. Let's say instead of talking about the student loans, the money that's owed back with interest, we start talking about it without interest. Like, what's the actual debt if it was 0% interest? Probably half or less, right? This is just my reasoning. Maybe I'm wrong. In fact, it may be much less. So the money that the government's going to make off this for providing these loans and everything, I mean, there would be like some sort of surcharge, just for kind of servicing the loan. They have to pay people to actually service it, stuff like that. That could be worked in the numbers. But the way we have it now, a lot of people are defaulting. Once they do finally get to paying, it's so much they can't pay it. So they do everything to avoid it. But what if you could just check a box and say, I'll give you this $4,000 tax return, or even, here's 3,000 of it. I just need that 1,000 to go on vacation, whatever. And we could figure out a way so that they keep it and they match it dollar for dollar, or $1.80, or $2.20, whatever kind of works out to make it 0% interest for them, so that it doesn't cost them anything. But they get their money back. Interesting, right? Because if you think about it, if the government is getting its money back, it should kind of shut up, shouldn't it? We didn't make these loans as a people. We didn't allow this system in order to indebt our children, in order to make money off of our children. We created the systems to, bring in money for college because it was going up so much. So as a populace that has children, a great many of us do, it's more than worth it to get our money back, even if we have to do a 1-for-1 and take away some of that interest. And then what can happen is, while you're paying it off, it gets lower, because let's say you put in 4,000, that pays like your interest for the year, right? In fact, what they could do is say, okay, your interest for the year is XYZ. You only have a tax return of $1,200, but it's going to be $2,000. Would you like to pay the rest? And that then you could send that in. I mean, they're all connected. The IRS, and the Direct Loan Department of Education. These are all part of the same government, so it's very, very possible. And they could even show you, okay, so you pay this $2,000 off. We take $2,000 off of principal. So now you're going to be in an upward spiral where hopefully you're making more money. And now instead of paying back, let's say $50,000, you're paying back $48,000 on principal, and it gets reamortized. And they could show you via computer, like, okay, if you do this, your payments are going to go down to this. And it's a choice. You can choose to do it or not to do it. But because you're getting a 2-for-1, you're effectively getting 0% interest. And it's so obvious, people will choose to pay. Because not having that flat screen, with your tax return, not always the worst thing in the world. And a lot of companies still give out, Christmas bonuses. So you're still going to get, kind of a boost throughout the year. And also then it means that next year you're going to have a little bit lower of a payment. And think what that does. Now, instead of getting $2,000, you got $2,000 off the principal and $2,000 off the interest. And let's say your payment goes from $500 to $440 as you go up and as you put in more tax returns. And you could also choose to either put in the tax returns or put in the tax returns and make monthly payments. And you could really start chipping away at it. But the thing to do is to get it down to zero. That's the only real fair thing to do. Get it down to 0% interest. And that's something the Office of Management and Budget can really figure out with the IRS. And like I said, Department of Education. And then when you do that, you're going to actually guarantee a lot more money back. Because when people are getting a 2-for-1 deal or something close to that, they're going to be like, holy shit, I can actually get rid of this debt. It's not going to be with me till I'm 70, right? It could be like a 10-year debt now. And as I go on, it's going to get smaller. The payments are going to go from $440 to $400 to $360. And you see, like, it goes down. So you might be making more money at that point. Even if you make the same amount of money, it's going to be going down. So you're going to have extra money, compared. So you could pay off other debts. So that's kind of my whole take on it. But then we have to look out for what's going on with the next generation because prices are getting even higher. So how do we kind of firewall that? So my idea was that we give all this money to these colleges. So we start forcing them, and I've mentioned this before, to put up some of the lower level classes online at their websites or at kind of a Digital Education Act, something like that, right? We have some sort of website that makes sense. And people can go there and be like, I want to take sociology. And they could be like 15. They just want to take a college, maybe they can get into a college level course. Maybe they just want to freaking watch it and kind of get an idea of what college is like. So there's kind of less of a anxiety. There's all sorts of reasons, and people could take it for credit. And they can get that credit, and it could be let's say, Social Work 101 at Hunter College in New York City, which is one of the top social work schools in the country. Or they could take Physics 101 with Michio Kaku, right? And I mentioned before how this works out for the professors too, because they could become kind of like superstars. They can write books and people will be like, I know that guy. The fucking entire country took 101 with him, Physics 101 with him, right? There's, you kind of make people's careers with this. So the professors are going to be like, yeah, I dig it. If they're that level, and all the other professors want to be getting to that level. So you create almost a competition to be the better professor, right? Just have to make sure it isn't a popularity contest, but that it's holy shit, he's so good at teaching. And we can figure out ways to do that. So now you could literally go into college having, 30 credits already, 30 college credits. A lot of high schools already do that, where they take Excel children and they give them what's called advanced placement classes. And that's really just a code word for college classes or at the college level. And they get credits before they even go into college. But why limit that to somebody who lives in some area where they can kind of get to one of those schools? Or, why not? We don't know. Maybe that kid who's 15, who sucks at math, is college level on nothing, and then they take Psych 101 and they're absolutely brilliant, and that ends up being their career. And they took it as a free course to figure out what they wanted to do. See, we're also helping people figure out what they want to do. We're figuring out if they want to go to college at all. We could put up other types of courses for free. The kind of courses we used to have in like high school, like for like electric and stuff like that. Obviously only the lecture courses. Basic electronics, basic house wiring, basic plumbing. That is something that like pretty much everyone could take, and it could become kind of almost a tradition that when you turn 15 or 16, you start looking into that stuff. Start trying to figure out what you want to do with your life so that it becomes more of what you want to do with your life as opposed to just kind of stumbling into some sort of job training that may or may not fit. And so many people I know are still pretty lost. I know a lot of disabled people, so that's part of it. But a lot of people have decent jobs. They just never really wanted to do them, and that's fine. I mean, that's Americana. When you're trying to figure things out, you stumble into something, and that's fine. And if you make a living at it, God bless you. But it's not necessarily the best way to do it. And we really are trying to help our children get into the areas where their talents are so that they have some sort of self-esteem, I had a friend who's a teacher, and he was a musician, so there's not too many things you could do with that and make a decent living. But his mother was a teacher, and he had a lot more confidence in it than most of my friends with whatever they were taking, because he was like, well, if my mother can do it and she's adult, in his head, in like everybody's head, oh, my parents, not that smart. She's actually pretty brilliant. He didn't recognize that, though. He was just like, if my mother can do it, I can do it. That was his kind of mental gymnastics. And even though he's kind of a low self-esteem guy, really nice guy, but kind of, a bit beta in some ways, it gave him the confidence to go and do it. And now he's making more than most of the people I know. Because he started so early, he went straight into being a music teacher and getting his master's. Because he had the confidence to do that. With these courses, and these aren't a joke course, if this is like 101 with like, the best physics professor we have, yeah, he may be really good at explaining things to the simple folk, but it's not necessarily easy. And if, let's say that happens, you could also see, am I really ready for college? Am I really going to be able to do college? So you take a bunch of 101s, and if like nothing appeals to you, everything's too academic, it's too hard, maybe you could go, you know what, I think I'm ADD, let me get some treatment for that. Or, I have some sort of cognitive problems, let me figure out what that is. Maybe, and it says until you're 26. I don't know if that's, I like 25, don't ask me why. I think 26 is like breaking the bank. But let's say you stay till 25, so now you're 18, you're out of high school, you're trying to figure out what to do with your life, but you're also getting some sort of medical treatment from your parents' insurance, hopefully. It was weird. I think it was 18 when I was 18, and then they raised it to like 20-something. So I had a couple of years where I didn't have it, and I got it back. It was weird. Okay. So what should we really, like, is 26 or even 25 a good idea? When it comes to healthcare, it seems like it changed so drastically over my lifetime. I remember, I think in the 90s, we went kind of GMO, or HMO, GMO. That's another conversation about Monsanto. But in the 90s, we did HMOs and no one liked them. They were very unpopular, but they were kind of the cost-saving model. Health management organizations, I believe. But in places where they were pretty decent, people loved it because it saved them a lot of money. And there are some success stories. But because, like, throughout the country, I think the HMOs are all gone now. The legislation that allows them is probably gone too. But before that, more in like the 80s, back when everybody had a job, we had a different system that kids today, that younger people today are going to look at and be like, that existed? And we kind of have to make a choice. There are a lot of ways to cheapen healthcare in order to make it more efficient. And I think they say up to 50% can actually be done, which would lower it to 10% of GDP. That doesn't mean our broke-ass government can afford to pay every penny for that. People are still going to have to pay into their own health care, either with higher taxes or during the year. So what do? You bring back something like the HMO as the kind of policy choice. And then what happened is, back when we got HMOs, they were really for poor people, right? So you maybe didn't like the doctor you had, but you could, request another doctor. It just had to be in network. So if they were in that network, if that person took the insurance, you were good. But if they weren't, you got charged like crazy because they would have a deal with those doctors. And it wasn't, the HMO charging you. It was the doctor. Although there are horror stories about some HMOs who are like, you're out of network, we're going to charge you $200 and we're going to pay him $500, you owe $700. But it's like a $50 thing. So yeah, there were people really trying to scam it. Now, what would actually cheapen it? A couple of the basic ideas. Yes, one of them is kind of the Trumpian plan of competition across state lines. I'm not sure why they even have that. I would really have to look into why they don't allow competition across state lines. But that's one part of it. That would drive down the costs. Also, not-for-profit insurance agencies or insurance companies. Right now, they're for-profit. They have a fiduciary responsibility to make as much money as possible for the people who own stock in it. And of course, if you're a CEO of it, you're probably going to own quite a bit of stock. A lot of your money actually comes from the stock as opposed to the money that they give you straight up. You get more of a bonus thing when it comes to straight cash. And a lot of the value of your pay comes from stock. Now, these owners want all sorts of cash, and there's no way we could really cut that out without allowing not-for-profit insurance. If we not only allow that but support it, many of these companies will become not-for-profit. I'd have to look into models where they use not-for-profit. But from what I've read, I think it's like 20%. Also, there's a lot of inefficiencies. If you go to a doctor, you have to call up and get your medical records, depending on what type of doctor. You have like 8 doctors that you may see over the year. So, let's say you go to a new heart specialist. Now you got to get that. They also want to see it from your GP or your internist. Not sure what the word is. I just use the old term GP as general practitioner. So there are a bunch of things that can actually lower the costs, but that's not going to be enough for us to afford to pay for decent insurance for everybody. and like the whole nationalized healthcare system comes with some really heavy taxes. And I don't think we're willing to pay that. It would just, so many businesses would just, entire industries would have to kind of go the way of the dodo. So I don't think that that's going to happen. But I'm not sure. Maybe there's something I'm missing. I'm not an expert, neither are the politicians. They get elected and they get, like, these golden insurance policies that most people don't get anymore because it would be just ridiculous. And that's the thing. A lot of the rules, like pre-existing conditions, were handled incorrectly. I think that we could do that if we said, okay, we're going to be the insurer of last resort, and people who are going to, who have cancer, let's say, we provide like a catastrophic insurance from the government so that they can always have that. And we could also do mental health services the same way, where these things that aren't usually paid for by insurance, but they end up on the hook, and they've tried to mitigate it with caps. They've tried to mitigate it with pre-existing conditions. We're not going to take you. Kind of like a car insurance company is not going to take you if you get into an accident every 5 minutes, right? Same sort of thing. It's based on cost. There's no morality in it. It's cost and profit. So they're trying to get people out. And I know we kind of, the evil boogeyman, it's the insurance industry. Yes, but it's also kind of our fault for allowing a for-profit insurance industry. So we disallow that, we litigate that out of existence, or we just kind of let the people decide, do they want to pay a not-for-profit insurance, or do they want to pay a for-profit insurance? And I bet you something like Blue Cross Blue Shield might stay for-profit because that would be the best insurance that people can get, let's say. I don't know where they are right now. They used to be. So people would want more of that kind of coverage, more like the old school 80s coverage, and they'll pay extra for that. But as far as like kind of the HMO type coverage that we're talking about, most people will choose that. And if it's through a not-for-profit insurance company and it cuts the cost, they're just going to go where the lower cost is. So there's a bunch of things. Some of them are kind of radical. Some of them are not. Like I said, your medical records. We should have kind of like a little thumb drive we all carry around with our medical records, or some sort of every hospital and doctor's office is networked so that you kind of have like a little card, and with a chip in it, like the new banking cards. And it will bring up your medical records. But you can only do that with your card and maybe your PIN. I don't know. There's ways to make it secure because people don't necessarily want all of their medical information out there or being given to insurance companies. But if it's with under HIPAA, if it's with some sort of medical organization, there's already a lot of rules to that. So we don't have to worry about too much about, the insurance companies know that, you smoke 5 packs a day. We don't necessarily have to know that or have to worry about them knowing that. So we have some kind of solutions going on. And I know this is, me babbling and me putting out my opinion. But that's some of the things I want to look into. How to cheapen education, how to cheapen healthcare. How to make it more affordable. Now, why do Republicans always talk about making it more affordable? Well, if we have some sort of kind of charitable program that gets, it's a new entitlement, and the costs keep going up and up and up, then the people who work and are not eligible for any kind of help are going to be the ones that are going to lose out. It's going to be too expensive like it is now. It's too expensive for people who work to get it. And wow, I think a whole year used to be like 4,000. Now it's like 8 to 12, and the insurance is nowhere near as good. And the deductibles are incredibly high if you get, the cheaper ones. It's gotten ridiculous. When the Republicans say that this thing is on its last legs and is about to implode, there is no doubt about that, because it's made insurance so expensive for people who can pay for it that they can't pay for it. So you think you have kind of a simple life. It's like, oh, okay, I make decent money. I don't have to apply for assistance anywhere. If anything, I get some help through tax credits or whatever. And then you see your bill, and you're like, whoa. Is this the yearly or the monthly? What the F? And people are really getting hammered, and especially businesses who are trying to do the right thing and give their people insurance when they may be even too small that they don't even need to. They just want to give people full-time jobs for whatever reason, and they're just good people maybe, and they want to actually give them insurance too, and they can't. So we take out the pre-existing conditions and mental health, and we put that into into a nationalized healthcare system. Take it out so that it makes more sense to have actual insurance as opposed to just tossing the bill, here and there. That's what we really have now. It's not really insurance. The numbers just don't work out that way. I've heard people call it a transfer of payment system. I don't exactly understand that. But when I heard it, it sounded convincing. So what do? You kind of have to do everything at once, and that's the crazy part. You could start bringing it down with competition and other things. Well, it's going to take a while to create or to transform pre-existing insurance companies into non-for-profit ones. It's not going to happen overnight. There's going to be a transition period, and people are going to push really hard against it because they're making tons of money. The stockholders, which includes usually the entire executive board. So it's going to have to be kind of a pushback and a huge movement. And that takes a while. It can happen, but it takes a while. And we don't know if the money in politics is going to allow it. It takes like kind of a Trump who doesn't give a shit, who's beholden to no one in many ways. But the typical Democrats and Republicans are super beholden. So unless we get rid of all of them, unless we have like a 28th Amendment, it's going to be rough. It's going to, take a lot of pressure. It's going to take electing people, and maybe you don't want too much. Slappy, the homeless guy down your street who runs for mayor, you elect him just to not elect a Democrat or Republican. It's going to have to be crazy like that. And that's really how in a democracy you do it. You don't start throwing Molotov cocktails. That just gets people into, how do we convince them we're not screwing them as opposed to not screwing you? You really have to get people in there who aren't part of the PR crowd, the marketing crowd. So it's not going to be easy, but no one said it was. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. The price of not getting screwed as well. Because that's really, anytime you form a government coffer, anytime you have some sort of big bag of cash, a big box of cash, there will be people trying to steal it. And most of the people who get into government will be the people trying to steal it. So, or steal their fair share, so to speak. So there's always has to be some sort of kind of ongoing revolution where you're figuring out this person is one of those people and you're getting rid of them. and you're electing Slappy the homeless guy just to keep them out of office. Not Slappy, but the Democrat or the Republican. I don't know any other way, and of course I'll look into it, but I don't know any other way that we could take our government back, supposedly, right? Even with Trump, it's going to be a slow and arduous thing. He is pushing against his own Republicans to try to do just like decent conservative things. And it's going to be a fight for him. And he's arguably the most powerful man in the world right now. Hopefully, at least in our government. So, I guess we got to join forces and form Voltron in some way. And hopefully the decent politicians will kind of get the hint and, join the train. We'll see. All right, so pretty soon, hopefully, I'll figure out some of these technical difficulties and I'll be able to do more of a show. I'll be doing more video. I'll be doing more whiteboarding, all that good stuff. And I really appreciate any interaction, any likes, anyone going to Patreon and supporting me for $1 or $2. What's going to happen is, as I do more videos and books and all that kind of stuff, I think the older stuff is going to only be archived on Patreon if I can figure out a way to do that, where it's behind kind of a paywall, so the older stuff isn't just kind of floating out there. You kind of have to join to get some of the older stuff. And I'm talking like $1 a month. So, $1, $3, and $5. I think the first level I'm going to make just like you can go into the archives and check things out. Sound like a plan? Sounds like a plan. All right. That's it for me tonight. And hopefully, like I said, I'll be coming back with my new and improved show quite soon.